The rain had been falling for days, not the quick, sharp kind that washes the world clean, but a slow, insistent drizzle that seeped into every tree, every stone, every tired board of the farmhouse. I drove through the mist, watching the fog curl along the creek, past trees whose branches sagged heavy with water. The world felt damp and waiting. The house rose ahead like a relic forgotten by time. Moss climbed the shingles in green veins. The porch sagged at its center, warped boards creaking softly as if complaining under their own weight. I stepped out of the truck, boots sinking slightly into wet mud, and felt the house pressing at me with the weight of its age. Lily Hart met me at the drive, smaller than I expected, quiet, composed, but with eyes that had seen far too much for her years. She nodded toward the porch. "It's stubborn," she said. "Grandpa started things and never finished them. Doors that don't fit, walls that lean. A puzzle, really." I smiled. "I work with stubborn buildings. They have stories. You just have to listen." Inside, the air smelled of damp timber, stone, and something older, buried in the walls. Every creak of the floorboards sounded intentional, as if the house was breathing around me. I ran my hand along the hallway beams, feeling the grooves and knots that centuries of hands had pressed into them. The first few days were simple enough. Brace the joists, tear out rot, inspect the foundation for weakness. Even amid the work, my mind kept returning to the strange layout of the house, the narrow hallways that led nowhere, doors that didn't fit any frame. There was something off here, though I couldn't place it, something alive. I found it on the fourth day. A hollow sound under my hammer drew me to the basement wall. The concrete beneath the plaster felt wrong. I pried away more drywall and insulation and discovered a seam, subtle but deliberate. A small rusted metal loop revealed itself when I brushed away the dust. I pulled, and the panel gave way with a sigh. Behind it, darkness yawned. A staircase, wooden and narrow, descending into packed earth. 13 steps. I counted without thinking. The air that rose from below was cool, damp, and smelled of iron-rich soil. My chest tightened as I felt a pulse in the floor, slow and rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The next morning I brought Lily down. She laughed at first. Root cellar unfinished. Nothing to see here. But when she leaned closer, her face softened. "This wasn't here before. I grew up here. I would have noticed." I said nothing. Her hesitation and certainty were enough. We left the cellar reluctantly, but I couldn't stop thinking about the stairs. That night, the dream came again, half sleep, half wake. I descended the steps, counting each step aloud. From below came 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I woke, heart hammering, sweat cold on my back. Over the next days, the stairs drew me in. I counted them, touched the worn wood, felt the chill deepen as I approached the bottom. 13 steps, always 13. Yet something beneath them seemed aware, waiting, patient, eternal, watching. The drive to the Hart farmhouse had been long and quiet, the kind of road that stretches endlessly through gray pines and misted valleys. The rain had begun before I left, soft at first, then insistent, coating the windshield with 1,000 tiny rivulets. Headlights cut a narrow path through the fog, and the world outside seemed suspended in a muted gray hush. I thought about why I had come here. Houses had always called to me more than jobs or money. I fixed things that others abandoned, mended what was cracked, reshaped decay into something almost alive again. But I also carried my own fractures, reminders of a life I had let slip away, divorce papers still folded in a drawer, a few photographs tucked behind my tools. The Hart farmhouse was supposed to be just another restoration, yet from the first glimpse through the mist, I knew this would be different. The house appeared suddenly through the fog, a squat figure leaning into itself, roof tiles warped, porch sagging. Moss crept over the shingles in slow green veins, thick as old scars. I parked in the mud and stepped out, the wet air heavy with cedar and the distant tang of the creek. Every inch of the house told me a story, though I did not yet know the author. Lily moved through it like she belonged, small and sure but cautious. She examined the boards, the warped railings, the crooked windows with a practiced eye, as if seeing the house in layers, its past, its present, and something she understood that I could not. "The house remembers," she said one morning, voice soft. "It remembers the people who lived here and the people who leave it." I followed her gaze, thinking of all the hands that had touched this place, the laughter and sorrow pressed into the walls, and the secrets hidden in every shadow. I told her nothing about the pulse I felt beneath the floorboards, the subtle vibration that seemed to echo through my own chest. Some things I realized were better left unspoken for now. Work on the house continued in quiet rhythm. I replaced rotting floorboards, braced leaning walls, and cleared sections of the overgrown yard. Every swing of hammer or saw reminded me of the fragility of time, the persistence of decay, and my own small attempts at restoration. And yet, even amid the familiar comfort of labor, my mind kept returning to the staircase hidden behind the panel. 13 steps, ending in packed earth. I first returned to it on the fifth day. Alone, I knelt at the top step, hand running over the worn wood. The air was colder here than elsewhere, dense with the scent of soil and something older, mineral, and faintly sweet. I lowered myself carefully, counting each step aloud. 1, 2, 3. The darkness swallowed the beam of my flashlight, and the vibration beneath the wood grew stronger, insistent, almost like a heartbeat. At the bottom, I crouched, hand pressed against the earth. The sensation was subtle, but undeniable. A rhythm older than the house itself throbbed faintly beneath the floorboards, and I sensed a presence. Not hostile, not welcoming, but patient, aware, waiting. I could feel it responding to me, acknowledging me in a way I could neither name nor understand. I left the cellar reluctantly that evening. The house settled quietly around me, timber groaning softly, as if sighing with anticipation. Outside, the mist thickened over the creek, curling around the trees in spectral tendrils. I could hear the soft drip of water from the roof, the creak of a branch heavy with rain, and beneath it all, I felt the pulse, faint but constant, a reminder that the earth beneath me was watching, waiting. Lily approached me the next morning, carrying tools for repairs. She watched me carefully as I worked, her eyes lingering on my hands, my posture, the way I sometimes paused to glance at the cellar door. "You feel it, don't you?" she asked quietly. I stopped, placing a hand on a partially repaired beam. "I don't know what it is," I admitted. "Something beneath the house. Something alive. It's aware." Her expression tightened. "Some things aren't meant to be understood," she said. "Not yet." Night brought vivid half-dreams. I descended the stairs again and again, counting, feeling the damp wood under my hands, the cold air pressing against my skin. 3 knocks echoed from below, slow and deliberate, each one vibrating through my chest. I woke gasping, chest tight, the house silent save for the soft drip of water from the roof. And always the pulse remained, faint but constant, a reminder that the earth beneath me was watching, waiting. Then one night, under a moon pale and thin, I returned to the stairs with a sense of inevitability. Fog curled between the trees outside, the creek a silver thread in the darkness. I descended carefully, flashlight quivering in my hand, counting each worn step. 1, 2, 3, 12, 13. At the bottom, I froze. Earth, fresh and wet, had shifted at the base of the stairs. A 14th step had appeared, perfectly formed, impossibly new, yet seamlessly integrated into the staircase. The pulse beneath it thrummed more strongly, resonating through the floor, the steps, the air, and my own chest. The house seemed to lean in closer, listening. I stood, hand hovering, unable to move or speak. The 14 steps waited silently, each one a testament to something alive beneath the earth. The presence beneath the house was no longer subtle. It had responded, had grown aware. And I knew, with a certainty that made my blood run cold, that this was only the beginning. Some doors once seen cannot be unseen. Some steps once counted cannot be uncounted. And some calls once heard cannot be ignored. 14 steps down. The light that morning felt wrong before I even opened my eyes. It was too thin, too pale, the kind that doesn't warm the room but only exposes it, like a secret peeled open. I lie still for a long time, waiting for the familiar sounds, water running through the pipes, the soft rattle of dishes, Evan humming to himself while he plans the day's repairs. But the house gives me nothing. Only the faint tick of the wall clock, and even that sounds tired. When I sit up, cold air slides down my spine. The window is fogged, and a single beam of light slices through, catching the dust that hangs in slow, lazy spirals. Everything looks untouched, but I know it isn't. The house feels emptied. I call his name once, twice. The sound falls flat. The kitchen is colder. His mug sits on the counter, half full of dark coffee gone to sludge. His jacket still hangs by the door, collar folded in the same neat way he always leaves it. I touch the sleeve. It's cold. The basement door is closed. I tell myself not to go to it, that he's outside, maybe walking the perimeter again, looking for that leak under the north gutter. I open the back door just to be sure. Frost crunches under my bare feet. His truck sits where it always has, beads of water frozen along the windshield. No footprints, no motion, no sound but the wind moving through the trees. The forest behind the house presses close, a wall of gray trunks and dripping moss. For the first time, it feels like it's leaning in, listening. I close the door. Evan's notes still clutter the table. Sketches of beams and foundations, but scrawled over with new lines, almost frantic. 13 steps, depth, intent, wood changes when counted aloud. He'd written that one 3 times, the words darker each time. The last page trails off mid-sentence. If the sound changes, it means... It stops there. The pencil mark fades into a smudge. I trace it with my finger, feeling the small groove in the paper where he pressed down hard. He must have heard it then, whatever it was that made him stop writing. The house groans softly, the sound rolling through the beams like breath. I put his notebook down, push my chair back, and walk to the basement door. I can smell it before I touch the handle, the damp, earthy cold that creeps up from below, the faint metallic tang of soil. My hand hesitates. I open it. The single bulb at the top of the stairs hums faintly, casting a cone of yellow light down into the dark. The stairs look the same, worn wood, rough railing, the edges shining faintly with moisture. 13 steps. I count them under my breath. 13. The air at the bottom is darker than shadow, heavy like a held breath. I should close the door. I should call someone. I do neither. Instead, I find myself lowering one foot onto the first step. It creaks softly, a familiar groan, the sound of old wood bearing weight. Another step, then another. I stop at the 4th, the air colder now, damp against my skin. The smell of earth is stronger here, sweet and metallic at once, like blood and rainwater mixed. Something drips in the darkness below. I whisper his name. Nothing. Only that slow drip and then a faint vibration through the rail beneath my fingers. A pulse, steady, patient. I back away, up the steps, heart pounding, and pull the door closed. The sound stops instantly, as though it had never been there. For the rest of the day, I move through the house in a daze. Every room feels wrong. The floorboards hum softly under my feet, too steady to be settling wood. I touch the walls, feel faint warmth, then cold. I hear the wind catch on the porch beams in uneven intervals, like breathing. By evening, I light candles, though it's not dark enough yet. The electricity flickers, a soft static that prickles against my skin. When I pass by the mirror in the hallway, I catch my reflection and freeze. For a heartbeat, I could swear there's someone standing behind me in the dim light. When I turn, there's no one. Only the open kitchen door and the faint sound of water somewhere deep below. I don't eat. I don't think about calling for help. I tell myself I'm just tired. When night comes, I try to sleep on the couch, but the house won't let me. The sounds start again. A faint tapping under the floor, irregular at first, then measured. 3 beats. Pause. 3 beats. I press my palm to the wood and feel it respond, a slow echo that's not mine. I whisper, "Evan?" Silence. Then, faint, far away, a knock, once. I tell myself I imagined it, but I can't stop listening. The candle on the table flickers low, the shadows crawl up the walls, lean together. When the wind moves through the eaves, I think I hear it whisper, not my name, but his. The hours bleed together. I keep thinking I'll call someone, his brother, the police. But I can't stand the idea of strangers in here, moving through his work, misunderstanding it. The house doesn't want anyone else. I can feel that now. Every time I reach for the phone, the line hums faintly and dies. By dawn, I give up pretending I'll sleep. The sky outside is the color of tin, and the mist presses against the windows like it's trying to get in. I boil water I don't drink. I keep rereading his last page until I know every indentation, every pencil groove. Something in me knows what I'm going to do before I do it. When I open the basement door again, the light bulb has gone out. The smell is thicker, damp wood and wet iron like a river hidden under the floor. I stand at the top step, one hand on the railing. The air feels alive, trembling faintly against my skin. I whisper, "Evan, if you're here, knock once." "Nothing," I whisper again. The silence folds around my words, and I hear the faintest scrape below, like a chair being moved slowly across stone. I take the first step. It doesn't creak. The next one sighs softly, and the sound travels down, swallowed by the dark. By the sixth step, the light from above has thinned to a narrow stripe. The air grows warmer, dense. I smell rain, though the day above is dry. 10, 11, 12. My breath trembles. The 13th step waits below, darker than the rest. I kneel, touching it. The wood is slick but warm. There's a print there, barefoot, half-faded, smaller than Evan's, but too defined to be old. I lower my hand over it. The grain pulses once beneath my palm, steady and deliberate, like a heart remembering how to beat. "Evan?" My voice shakes. Something moves just beyond the circle of light, sound without shape, a slow shift of air that brushes my cheek. I should turn back, I know that, but my body doesn't obey. I take one more step forward, and the boards under me sigh in relief, like they've been waiting. For a moment, I think I see him, a shadow at the edge of the dark, shoulders stooped, head turned. "Evan?" I whisper again. He doesn't answer. The shape fades, replaced by a low hum that runs through the floor, the railing, the marrow of my bones. The world tilts. The stairs feel longer now, stretching away beneath me, each step repeating itself like a reflection in water. My lantern light slides along the wall and catches something smooth, a line of symbols carved into the wood, shallow, unfinished. The first letter of my name. The hum deepens, my heartbeat stumbles trying to match it. I reach the bottom, but the floor isn't earth anymore. It's softer, uneven, and the boards curve inward, bowing slightly, as if I'm standing inside the ribs of something enormous. I whisper again, quieter now, afraid that speaking might make the walls breathe. The silence answers with a single sound, tap, then again, and again. 13 times. I start to back away, counting them under my breath. When the last echo fades, another follows, and one more, too quick, too close. A 14th. It doesn't come from below, it comes from behind me, where no stair should be. I turn, but the light stutters and dies, and the sound moves through the air like a breath against my ear. 14. Silence. Not the kind that sits quietly in a room, but the kind that fills it completely, pressing against your ears until you start to hear your own blood. I open my eyes to gray light filtering through the window. Dust drifts in slow motion, catching the pale beam like snow underwater. The air tastes of iron and smoke. My head rests against the floorboards, and I don't remember lying down. The cellar door is open. It hangs crooked, the hinges groaning softly each time the wind touches the house. The light from above doesn't reach far, just a strip of brightness along the first few planks, fading quickly into shadow. I push myself up, my palms leaving faint prints in the dust. My shirt is damp. The air around me feels wrong, heavier, like I've been breathing it for hours. I whisper her name, not a call, just a test. "Lily," no answer. The word disappears into the boards, swallowed whole. There are no footsteps leading to the door, none leaving it either. Only the faint indent of my knees near where I fell. I can't remember what happened last. The sound, the stairs, her voice, then nothing. Just the hollow that comes after sound. When I stand, the house moves slightly. The boards flex beneath my feet, groaning low, almost like a sigh. It's the same sound I used to hear when I first stepped on the 13th step, that deep living tone that vibrates in your ribs. The clock on the wall has stopped again, 7:14. I call her name once more. Lily? It feels like speaking underwater. The sound travels slow, thick, like something resisting it. Then, faintly, from somewhere deeper in the house, comes a whisper. It's not words, not yet. Just a shape of breath that almost forms my name. I freeze. It fades, replaced by the familiar rhythm of dripping water. Somewhere beneath the floor, a slow, steady beat, like the house is counting time in its own language. I take a step toward the cellar, half expecting to see her standing there, her lantern light breaking through the dark. But there's only the open doorway and a faint smell of wet earth. The stairs are gone. Not collapsed and gone, the space below is just black, a hollow that swallows light. My breath echoes back at me, delayed by half a second. Lily. This time I hear it clearly, a reply, soft and calm, from somewhere deep below. Evan. Her voice, it's her voice. The sound of her voice freezes me mid-breath. It isn't loud, it isn't echoing, it's close. The kind of nearness that lives inside your own throat. I whisper again, Lily? Nothing. Only that slow, steady drip somewhere beneath the floorboards, and then a faint hum that could be wind or could be breath. I kneel beside the opening where the stairs used to be. The smell of damp soil rises up and something sweeter under it, like cedar and ash. My lantern is gone, but a thin band of morning light cuts across the gap and vanishes halfway down. I try to judge the depth. The darkness doesn't answer. For hours, I think hours, I stay near that hole. Sometimes I speak, sometimes I listen. Each time I say her name, the house seems to shift slightly, boards tightening, walls flexing, like it's waiting for something precise in the way I pronounce it. When I finally stand, my knees crack. I try the door to the yard. It won't open. The knob turns, but the wood swells against the frame. The windows blur with condensation from the inside. It feels as though the house has sealed itself. I light a candle. The flame flickers toward the cellar. I could swear the air down there moves in time with it, breathing in when I breathe out. That night, the whisper returns. It threads through the boards, soft and slow. Evan, I answer before I can stop myself. I'm here. The air warms around me. The drip below stops. Silence again. Then, faintly, a second sound joins. Footsteps? No, too light, more like someone tracing fingers along wood. They travel upward, from beneath the floor, toward where I stand. Each one lands a heartbeat apart, rhythmic, patient. When it reaches me, it stops. I whisper, Where are you? The answer comes from behind me this time, close enough to raise the hair on my neck. Everywhere. I turn, but there's only the empty room. My candle burns low, throwing the walls into motion, shadows bending, stretching, as though the house itself is breathing. I spend the next day trying to leave. Every door opens to another room. The hall where the front door should be ends in a blank wall. When I walk upstairs, I find myself descending again. My body tires, but I never reach the top or bottom. The house folds in small, slow pulses, rearranging around me. Round. That night, I wake to her humming, a low melody I recognize. The tune she used to hum while painting. It comes from the walls, from the floor, from my own chest. I hum with it at first to prove it's only memory, but the longer I match the sound, the warmer the air grows. When I stop, the house exhales, a long, shuddering sigh that rattles the windows. A single word follows, clear this time. Closer. I find myself back at the cellar's edge. The blackness below looks different now, as though it's filled with smoke that moves without light. I lower the candle. The flame stretches downward, and for a heartbeat, I see shapes, steps again, but they curve upward and vanish into the ceiling, looping like ribs. Lily? Her voice answers from everywhere and nowhere. You found me. I should be afraid, but the sound carries warmth, familiarity, the kind of tone she used when she'd whisper to wake me. My eyes sting. What happened to you? She laughs softly, and the sound echoes 3 times before fading. Nothing happened. I just remembered the way back. The candle gutters. Darkness folds over my hands. The boards beneath me vibrate gently, a heartbeat not mine. I can't see you, I whisper. I know, she says, but you can hear me. That's closer than seeing. The next days, or maybe it's only one day drawn thin, pass in fragments. I hear her footsteps above me when I'm downstairs, below me when I climb. Sometimes she whispers words I don't understand, syllables that taste like dust and rain. Each time she speaks, the house answers with a faint creak as though acknowledging her. Eventually, I stop questioning whether she's alive. She is the sound itself, the hum in the wood, the rhythm in my pulse. I start speaking to her out loud, telling her everything I remember: the first time I saw the house, the way the pines bent in the wind, the color of the lake that day we thought we were lost. The echoes return my words slightly out of time, my voice blending with hers until I can't tell which of us is speaking. One evening, or what feels like evening, I find new stairs. They rise where the kitchen wall should be. Smooth wood, freshly cut, leading upward into a glow that doesn't belong to any light I've ever seen. I climb. The steps hum under my weight, low and steady. Halfway up, I realize each creak falls in perfect rhythm with a heartbeat, the same one that's been under the floor. At the top, I expect to find the attic. Instead, I step into the basement. The geometry has turned itself inside out. The house breathes in slow waves, the walls pulsing faintly, as if drawing air through me. Her voice is clear now, right beside my ear. "You came back late." "I tried to find you," I say. "You did." The air thickens with warmth, and the dark below begins to shimmer, a slow swirl of light and dust. It looks like water turned to glass. My reflection wavers in it, then hers overlays mine. I reach out, the surface yields like breath on skin. "Lily," I whisper, "can I come home?" The answer arrives not as words, but as the same rhythm I've heard since the first day in this house, a single steady pulse, rising from the depths. I take a breath and step forward. The air wraps around me, soft as fabric, smelling of cedar and rain. My feet find invisible steps descending through nothing. Each one sounds different, a note in a song I've known all along. When I reach what should be the last, I pause. There's another below it, warm, new, the 14th. Her voice speaks inside my breath. 14? I close my eyes. For a moment, I feel her hand in mine, cool, certain, real. The air expands around us and the house releases a long, quiet sigh. It feels like peace. Then the sound fades and everything becomes still again. The fog lay thick across the valley floor, the kind that turned distance into blankness and muffled every sound. Rowan had been walking since before dawn, following a faint trail that had dissolved hours ago. His map was useless now, the paper soft from moisture, edges curled. When he reached the clearing, he almost didn't see the house at all. It emerged as shape before detail, a suggestion of angles where there should have been only trees. The structure leaned slightly to one side, its paint long since gone, its roof bowed in the center, yet even from afar it seemed intact, too intact. He stopped at the tree line, hand on a trunk slick with moss. The silence was total. No insects, no wind, not even the faint hum of his own breath. Then, somewhere beneath it all came the quietest sound, a single drip, water maybe, or something else. Rowan adjusted the strap of his pack and stepped into the clearing. Each movement seemed to disturb the air around him, not in sound, but in weight. The grass bent beneath his boots, and he felt it resist, as though the earth were reluctant to let him pass. The house waited ahead, 2 stories of weathered wood and blackened windows. The porch sagged but held. Its boards were dark with old rain. When he touched the railing, it was warm. He frowned, withdrew his hand. The air itself was cold, but the wood carried a pulse, faint, steady. He tried the front door. It opened without sound. Inside, light drifted in broken shafts through the windows. Dust hung in the air, moving in patterns too slow to be natural, as though stirred by breath instead of air. Rowan called out once. "Hello?" Then again. His voice didn't echo. It stopped a few feet away, absorbed into the stillness. He stepped further in. The smell was strange. Not rot, not mold, but old wood and something sweet, faintly metallic, like a coin held too long in the palm. A table stood near the far wall. On it sat a brass lantern. The glass was clouded, the wick blackened, but the handle shone faintly in the pale light. He lifted it. The weight felt right in his hand, balanced. Something about it made him pause, a sense of recognition he couldn't name. He shook it off, checked inside. Oil, enough for hours. When he struck a match, the flame took instantly, the light spread outward in slow ripples, the walls seeming to bend with it. The hum began then, soft at first, like a vibration in the air, not sound but presence. He thought it might be the wind, but there was no wind. He lifted the lantern higher, moving toward the next room. The floorboards beneath his feet groaned, low and deep, not random, rhythmic. 13 times he heard it before it stopped. He froze, listening. Silence returned, thick and unbroken. He took another step. The sound did not repeat. Ahead, a doorway opened into a narrow hall. The wallpaper had peeled away, leaving long scars in the plaster. A mirror hung crooked on one wall, its surface darkened with dust. He wiped it with his sleeve and stared at his reflection. For a second, there were two of him. He blinked, stepped back. The second image lingered an instant longer, then dissolved. He exhaled slowly, almost laughing. Get a grip. His voice fell flat, swallowed by the air. At the end of the hall, a door waited. It looked newer than the rest, its handle clean and bright, brass uncorroded. Rowan reached for it. The hum stopped. He hesitated, hand inches from the knob. The silence pressed harder, dense enough that his ears rang. He turned it. The door opened. A staircase descended into blackness. He stood at the top of the stairs, the lantern's light spilling down only far enough to reveal the first few steps. The air that rose from below was colder than outside, wet and still, smelling faintly of stone. He waited for the hum to start again. It didn't. Only his heartbeat filled the space, loud enough that he felt it in his fingertips. Rowan lifted the lantern higher. The light trembled, painting the boards in soft gold. The steps were worn smooth, edges rounded from years of use. 13 of them, he thought without knowing how he knew. He whispered into the dark, "Anyone down there?" The words sank. There was no echo, only the slow return of that low vibration, faint but certain. It wasn't in the air this time, it was in the wood. He set one foot on the first step. The plank gave a soft sigh, a note that held steady until he moved again. The sound matched his pulse. Another step and another, the lantern's light sliding along the railing. Moisture gleamed on the grain. Halfway down he stopped. A murmur rose from the deep, just on the edge of hearing. Two tones braided together, one light, one lower, moving in the same rhythm. It might have been wind in a narrow shaft. It might have been voices. He took another step. The whisper became clearer, resolving into syllables that almost formed his name. At the 9th step, the air warmed. The fog from outside seemed to have followed him in, coiling along the walls. He brushed it with his free hand. It moved like breath. He counted softly. 10, 11, 12. The 13th step waited below, darker, slick with sheen. The hum swelled. He could hear them now, distinctly. A woman's tone first, gentle as someone coaxing a child awake, and beneath it, a man's voice, steadier, patient. "Closer," they said together. Rowan froze. The lantern shook in his hand, light darting across the boards. He should have turned, but the air behind him had thickened, pressing him forward. He lifted one foot, held it above the 13th step. The voices breathed again, closer still. "There's one more." He stared into the dark. Something below was changing. A faint glow gathered under his boots, not from the lantern, but from the wood itself. The boards flexed once, twice. Then a new shape rose out of the black, a step forming where there had been none. The 14th. The light from his lantern bent toward it, drawn downward. The voices overlapped completely now, one sound with two timbres. "You found us." "You're home." The house seemed to lean inward at the words, beams settling, walls exhaling. Rowan felt warmth spread through the rail beneath his hand, a pulse that met his own and steadied it. The air smelled of rain and cedar, of earth after a storm. He nodded once, though no one could see him, and stepped forward. The lantern slipped from his grasp, spinning once before resting upright on the 13th step. The flame stayed lit, trembling. The light caught the edges of the new board just long enough for him to see it gleam, fresh, smooth, alive. The hum deepened into a single drawn-out sigh that filled the stairwell and then the whole house. Dust lifted from the floorboards above, settled again. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows, whitening them completely. When the sound faded, there was only stillness. And from somewhere beneath the floor came the quiet, patient sound of counting. 1, 2, 3. And we find ourselves at the end of 13 steps. I hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day.